Welcome to Casually Dressed Deep Conversation with me, Greg Chalmers, and the Bonnie to my Clyde. It's Christopher Shields. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you? That's an interesting one. A different one. I like that. I'm into it. How you getting on?
I'm okay, mate. I was just thinking to myself, right? This is the first podcast we've ever done at sunset.
Yeah, it is. Usually, all kind of tend to be either like early doors in the morning or like just in the depths of night. So.
It's just added a sort of extra, I don't know, some sort of better vibes, man. Usually it's like I can see the rain smashing off this window and all.
Yeah, it's
just, anyway, mate, I digress.
We do.
Our guest this evening is the founder and program development manager of Art Fitness, Gary Rutherford. How are you, sir?
Hi, I am wonderful. And can I just say, I think it adds an element of romanticism to this whole thing, because you guys have a really good relationship thing going on there, but backwards and forwards. Now we're in sundown. Hi, so it's a great night.
I know, but we're like the ant and deck of Glasgow, mate. That's it.
That's it. Right.
Only one of them fucked off to Northern Ireland and left me.
That's it. What can you do? What can you do?
So, Gary, tell us. Obviously, the world is in turmoil, as it seems to have been, has been for God knows long now. How have you been getting on? I know. How have you been getting on with it?
Oh, well, okay. So, personally, I'm doing better than I was about a year ago when it all started. So lockdown happened a week into my in-laws coming over to visit from London. And they were here for 6 months. And so lockdown for us really changed the dynamic of our house. And it was strange and it was weird, but there was that kind of Stockholm syndrome thing towards the end. You know, I kind of got used to it. You know, it was like, this is a really great thing.
Don't leave! Don't leave!
So things really changed. Like the dynamic of our life changed, and lockdown came, work changed, Zoom came. Like, where did that come from? All of a sudden it was just here. We run an addiction recovery service where we promote community of people, and then we couldn't. So it's been a really weird 18 months. And I think, like most people, this one seems to be the most frustrating.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I think people are just fed up. And so I'm a trained nurse, so I get the health side 100%, but I'm also a human, so I really get the frustration side. Mm-hmm. So we're doing okay. As I said, I'm sitting in a gym and haven't been able to use it since last March. And I mentioned, like, every now and again about a tumbleweed just kind of floats past there on the floor. I'm like, whoa, right. But health is good. We are good. My family's good. And we're just navigating it the same as everybody else, same as you guys.
Do you know what's funny? It's funny, what you were saying about your in-laws there. Chris actually has a very similar tale to this.
Very, very similar. So we literally moved over, I got unpacked and we moved into my in-laws in Belfast, the day of. So we basically unpacked, and that night we sat down to like the Hunger Games. Everyone just sat down to watch Boris put put us all into lockdown. Just like, oh no. And then we were there till November, so about the same sort of time. Ridiculous.
And you know what? And I joke about it and stuff like that, and not that they're going to, probably will watch this, but not that I feel like I need to defend it, right? But it was one of those things where I think the idea of it's like, what? And then it just becomes a way of life. And you know what? And it was one of those kind of relationships that served each other. Everybody was kind of benefiting them. Everybody worked together. Yeah. And, it's kind of what you see now with the community stuff. Like, I work in the community sector, and it's all about people just pulling together through this really weird, rubbish, strange time. But as I said, if things would get back to normal pretty soon, that would also be okay. I would be happy with that. It's a clarity thing, and they were asking, do you know when the gym's going to be open? And we're in Northern Ireland, so it could be tomorrow or it could be 2025. So in between that little bracket.
Do you
know what? It's funny because what you were saying there about you kind of get used to it. It just shows the adaptability of people. Do you know what I mean? You kind of just you know, you see it in nature and stuff like that, like something changes for like an animal and it kind of adapts itself to fit its surroundings. And I think everybody, and what you were saying about everyone kind of just this time round being a bit like, oh, come on. Because see, at the beginning, you're just like, yes, summer holidays, man. The sun's shining. You're like, I'm getting paid 8% of my wage and I can go hill walking with my mates.
Yep.
Winter rolled in. It was a different story.
That hill's not looking too happy right now. And you know what? There's a lot of snow up there. It's cold.
Yeah.
And here, all these mad people that are like going cold water swimming and stuff. I'm like, whoa. That's the summertime thing there. So people have to think, some people have gone a bit mad too over lockdown too. It's really weird. I don't know about you, but people that you were friends with, I think some people have gone really weird. Like, and it's just, I think it's really kind of set some people off. And you're like,
really?
whoa.
Oh, yeah. There's been a few people, yeah. Like, see the people that, there's been some real, you realise some of your pal, I don't know if a few mates that have all of a sudden just become real conspiracy theorists. They're just like, fucking, there's a pandemic. They're just trying, the whole thing, they're completely, they're just penning us in. And you're going, what?
Like, was that always there? Did I miss that? Or
Yeah.
Did something happen?
When was our pals with so many weirdos?
Mate, it's like we had a guy on the podcast twice actually. He's been on Tarion Boyd. He's an actor, comedian, and just general sort of weird savant. And he just started painting dogs. That was
Not actually, like portraits of dogs. Not just going about.
not going up to dogs and painting them. Sorry,
the back of it. Just finding a Labrador and just like, a load of emulsion on the back of it. No.
just glossing a bull mastiff. No, he's like he like painting pictures of dogs, and Chris bought one off him.
Yeah, I got him to do a picture of my mum's dog.
Well, Chris, that's very kind, and that shows a really nice side of your personality. But now in my mind, I'm just imagining Glasgow full of like half yellow, just dogs going dogs that are traumatized, shaking in the corner and everything. Like, what happened? Some guy tried to paint me.
So, Gary, we
Yes.
can just get off the sort of decorating dogs thing for a minute, right? For anyone listening who isn't familiar with Art Fitness, can you give us an insight of what it is that you do?
Yes. So we are an addiction recovery service, and we're based in the north. So I set ARC up now just over 2 years ago as a social enterprise, a not-for-profit organisation. So what we do is we use physical activity as the vehicle to help people start to change their life in recovery. So we're a sober active community. So not only do we train people physically, we also put them through an addiction recovery program, 6-week structured program. And it was something that, you know, so for those who don't know, my background is addiction. I struggled for about 15 years. I will be clean and sober now 10 years in August.
Good man.
And I went back and I retrained when I got sober as a nurse, psychiatric nurse, so I worked in mental health. Always wanted to work on addiction, but fitness and exercise was a big part of my recovery. Because, like, you know, if you're putting stuff up your nose or down your throat all day, every day, and then you take it away, massive big hole to fill. So exercise was a big part of it for me, and I always wanted to find a way to pull everything all together. So not only the professional part of view or point of view from being a nurse, but the personal lived experience of being in recovery, but also having been through that struggle for a long period of time. So I set up a Facebook page, totally random, because I would have done a lot of indoor climbing, and a friend of mine at the time was saying, I used to post stuff on my social media, like I was very recovery orientated about it, and I was always very transparent about it. And he said, look, I had a friend, and the friend was struggling, but I couldn't share your post with him. Did you ever think of setting up a page? And I didn't, and we went climbing, and I went back that night and set up the page. Literally was just a signposting thing. I was just going to say, look, I'll throw some posts up here. And within 2 weeks, there was therapists starting to refer people into the service. And I was like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. And I was working full time at the time. So Company's House registered that thing as a not-for-profit and ran a trial group. And now we're 2 years down the line. We have 2 full-time staff. We have a team of 10 sessional facilitators as well. And we just got National Lottery funding, so we're planning to put out another 120 people through the program. But it's just really going from strength to strength as an organisation. However, it highlights the need for it, because there's we've had a waiting list from the start. and there's just it's a massive problem. And like, we're not just talking about people who are physically dependent. For us, we're talking about people that it's impacting their life, or it's impacting their relationships, or their work, or their family. So our goal is get people in, get them sober, help them stay sober, and do really well in life. And it's working. Thank God.
Mate, do you know, it's we've had similar conversations with people on the podcast before, just about, you know, we were just kind of half joking about the pandemic thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that drug use in particular is its own pandemic, right? Because it's something that everybody knows is out there, but it is rife. Especially, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are for Northern Ireland, but I know Scotland in general are number 2 in the world for cocaine consumption per head of capita, and that is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? It is everywhere.
And what the pandemic did, so it put people in their homes, it put them at 80% of their salary without having to work. Drugs now are delivered to your house. You don't have to go out and look for it anymore.
Quicker than a pizza.
So what has happened is people have found themselves with a lot of time, a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty gives stress, and people cope with whether it's drugs or it's alcohol. And what has happened is we're now seeing people that are just coping. And this is the thing, if you don't have those healthy coping mechanisms going into lockdown, like, you're not just going to automatically have them in lockdown. So you're going to fall back on what you know. And what's happening is people are drinking more, people are using more, people are smoking. You can't even see out their windows. Like, it's really, really, really increasing. Like, and we're going to see the fallout from that. So we will, not even just in terms of mental health, but definitely, like, people don't recognize how quickly you become physically dependent on alcohol. If you drink a bottle of wine every single night for 2 weeks, you'll be sick when you stop. Like. Yeah. And people don't realise that, you know. So if you're in your house every night drinking a bottle of wine, and that continues for 3 months, 4 months, you need to properly medically detox it.
That's scary, isn't it? And especially it's something that's legal. Do you know what I mean? It is difficult because obviously, I've said this for ages, that if they discovered Bevy the now, it would never ever be legal. They would not. No, do you know what I mean? That's frightening.
And the thing about it too. So yes, that's right. But we live somewhere where it's freely available, and I think from a societal point of view, I'm not anti-alcohol, all right, but I am anti-access to it, the price of it, the fact that if people don't have these coping mechanisms, then we almost facilitate them to go down the road of using it, and you know, like. Some people can have a drink in moderation. Some people are well balanced enough to be able to do that. So that's all right. However, the majority of the population aren't and don't understand the units, health implications of alcohol, all of that sort of stuff, you know. So us as an organisation, it's not about like, oh, drink's bad. It's not about that. It's about, we take people that have now just recognised that it doesn't work for them at all. Yeah. And they want to change. In a society where it's hard to be a non-drinker, people think you're flipping weird.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing, isn't it?
100%.
It's just like the way people go about drink. Like, they don't have you can't just go for a cup. Like, heading for a couple of beers with the boys, it just doesn't happen. It turns into 9, 10 before you know it.
It's a UK thing, but
it 100% is. Wherever else I've been, they don't have that. They don't have that thing where they're like the old
and there's that
Donald Trump is home, you know what I mean, at the end of the night, you know what I mean?
There's that social pressure, and that's why people are afraid to stop, because it's like, what are people going to think of me? What am I going to do with my time if I don't drink? And I always tell people, I do everything else, just don't drink and take drugs. It's the only things. Like, I can still go to a bar or a restaurant, I can still enjoy all the things that I just don't drink.
Yeah.
And it's such a barrier for people because they do think that society will perceive them as they have a problem or they're different. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to change that kind of perception where, do you know what, it's actually all right not to drink. It's actually okay. Yeah. It doesn't make you weird. You know, it makes you more productive, healthier. You'll achieve more.
100%. I think it shows a lack of comfort. People are like kind of uncomfortable and kind of being themselves, like kind of being themselves in a social setting. So like, right, well, I need this wee bit of like liquid courage. You know what I mean, it's a kind of real lack of awareness of who well, I mean, everybody, a lot of people have it, who you are as a person and how you can conduct yourself in a social setting.
And I think about my journey, right? So I started using drugs and alcohol really quite young in my teenage years because I was really anxious and insecure.
Yeah.
And then I was bullied at school, and then you start to think, well, that happened, so there must be something wrong with you, and so you want to fit in, and that became my coping mechanism. I didn't have a major trauma. I was brought up by great parents. We had a great home, but the traumas were what they call the micro trauma stuff. They were the bullying at school. They were the social stuff. They were the lack of confidence. So I used drugs and alcohol throughout that kind of adolescent years. And then I went to university in Scotland, so I actually lived in Aberdeen for quite some time.
Right.
So I took all that insecurity and I took all that newfound freedom, and I just went mental. Like
mixed that with 50p mixers.
My first, I got a job as a doorman, right? Because one, I wanted to reinvent myself. Two, there was access to a lot of drugs doing that, So I got myself in the circles that I was trying to fit in with again. And that the drugs got harder. I always used kind of party drugs, and I used alcohol whenever I was a teenager living in the north because, it was readily available. Went to Scotland, and then, you were coke, and I used heroin for a bit in Scotland. And the access was there. Aberdeen, there's access. It's just the nature. It's where it is, anywhere where there's a boat.
And that's a bastard because we're an island.
So that was Aberdeen. That was my experience of Aberdeen. I tried to stay functional, went to university, and then I lived in Dumfries for a while.
That'll be nice when it's finished. It'll be nice when it's finished, though, won't it?
Dumfries. And I went in and I lived in Dublin, and then I lived in Tralee in County Kerry. I was married down there, and then everything just fell apart. 2009, I came back to Derry with like two black bags of clothes. I was turfed in the AQR because I was arrested again down the south. I was arrested, turfed in the AQR, and brought back up to Derry and says, you need to sort your shit out. And that was the start of it. And there was a lot to go after that. I didn't get sober straight away. I had a lot of torturing of people to do before then, and I've been in residential treatment now, 2 occasions. One for 4 weeks. Came out of there, first time I was sober in years, and I thought I was going to fix the marriage at that time. So go in here now, do your 4 weeks, serve your time, and you'll be grand. Came out, and I think because I had all of that years worth of stuff that I hadn't processed or dealt with, I didn't know how to fix it, and I just went mad. I went back drinking again. As soon as I got out of the rehab, I started using legal highs at this stage because I'd lived away for so long and didn't know people. And just got myself in just an awful state. My mental health deteriorated. I was finding myself in trouble with the police again. I was just not a nice person at that time in my life. And then made the conscious decision to go into another rehabilitation centre for 3 months. And this was in a place in Armagh. Now, there was frost on the inside of the windows. It was a castle. It was freezing. There was no TV. There was no radio. And you did your chores, and you read, and you chilled, and you just figured this thing out. And it was a very different approach. But that was the start of me kind of starting to figure things out. And then I relapsed on and off for 2 years before I got consistently sober. And that's it. It'll be 10 years now. 10 years in August. And you know what? If I look back in the 10 years now, compared the achievements and the things that I have in life now, it's mental to think what I have now compared. Because at the time I thought I was broken, nobody would have me, marriage failed, I was in pieces, and you're like, what's your life going to look like? Mm-hmm. And this is what we try to do with ARC. We try to show people that you're not your current circumstances. Yeah. There is a future, and there's hope, and there's hope to change, and we're all about that. It's all about being hopeful and positive in the nature of this thing, because it can be so destructive.
Yeah. Do you know, sorry, Chris, on you go, mate.
I was just, do you know, me and Greg we were just talking about this. So we've had a couple of people on the podcast who have recovered from a substance addiction. Mm-hmm. With 3 other people, and each one of them has in their recovery has just become this high functioning pit.
Mate,
2 of them have written books. One of them is just here, there, and everywhere doing all. It's incredible.
There's
what
also
people do.
Josh Quigley was talking to you yesterday.
Oh, Josh, yeah, we did. Yeah, so that's 4. With
Josh Quigley was battling depression, drugs and alcohol addiction, and then one day saw Chris Hoy talking, and then went, he'd never cycled before, and went, I'm going to cycle around the world. And then he set the world record for cycling the North Coast 500, which is 516 miles around Scotland. And he did it in 31 hours. Did they stop? Stop for 8 minutes, and that was at traffic lights. 31. Do you know what I mean? Just single-minded.
But you know what I find, right? I find whenever people get it, whenever people have been through that emotional distress and turmoil and stuff, they come into this thing with so much vigour and so much so much real raw grit and determination to do things. Then you tend to find a lot of people that are doing these amazing things are at some level in recovery from something. And it's really good to see, because it was going back to that thing about, if you don't drink, you become a bit more productive. But of course you do. If you're not laying in your bed sick, or if you're not hungover, or if you don't have the terrors, or if you don't have the anxiety in that, you just function better. Your brain works better. And it's funny to see. So, like, you had a step, Guildhall Square in Derry. I remember sitting there drinking a bottle of Buckfast on the floor. Love Scotland, not Buckfast, mind you. And then I got a first in my degree because I was actually able to function. And since then, like, I'm remarried, I have a daughter, and I'm running a non-profit, and it's just amazing what you can achieve. And I think if you can show people or demonstrate that to people, not in an arsey way, not like, oh, look at me, I've got this stuff. If you can say to somebody, well, look, it's really shit where you are now. You don't always have to stay there, and it can be different. Come on, let's try and engage you along. Then it just gives hope to so many people, and so many people can achieve more. We've guys that have gone through the program now that are back at university, that are working, that are peer support workers, and that's it. Like, it's not a death sentence. Like,
do you think that it helps your recovery helping others in their recovery?
100%. Look, if I went on this to help people, because in doing that, intrinsically you get something from that. Yeah. So yes, it's a nice thing to do, but I definitely think that, and I think many people in recovery will say that, is if you've been through something as destructive and distressing as all the stuff that addiction brings with you, you have a duty of care to take that and use that to make sure people don't have to go down the same road that you went down. And if you look at loads of different types of programs, so they talk about service, and there's loads of types of programs now at this stage. There's AA and NA, and then there's other like CBT programs, but it's all about giving back. And I think even just as people, giving back at some level is something that we should do. I think it's intrinsic to us all. So yes, part of me does this because it helps me. And like, I don't have the answer. Like, I'm not like a super recovery, I'm not like Russell Brand. Like, I don't have all of the answers, right? So everybody that comes through the program brings something different because their experience is different. Their trauma is different. Their coping is different. So in doing that, I learn more about me and staying clean and sober.
So tell me, see, obviously people come into the programs and stuff like that, and they have different issues. It's manifested itself in alcohol or substance addiction or whatever, but how do you tailor the programs to somebody's individual needs, whether it be physical or mental? So we don't, and this is the thing, because whenever somebody comes, whether they're coming to you, whether it's cannabis, heroin, codeine, prescription medication, or it's alcohol, it's irrelevant. That's just what it looks like. So stuff in the background. So it's understanding that. So whenever people come in, not only you think of the broad spectrum of people that we're working with, right? So we've had people through the program that are personal trainers. We've had people through the program that have never set foot in a gym in their life or even raised their heart rate over 100 intentionally. So we have to cater for the spectrum of people. But also we take them through the cycle of change. So we take them through the first week, the first topic is the cycle of change. Where are you? How did you get there? And have a think about it. And it gets everybody on a level playing field. We have CBT therapists and counsellors as well. So obviously there's other underlying issues. We do have people that come in with mental health issues. But the good point about us is I'm a trained mental health nurse, and we also have 2 other mental health nurses, as well as our therapists. So the skill mix that we have is quite good in dealing with that sort of stuff. And we're very good at signposting. Like, we work alongside a lot of organisations because this thing shouldn't be competitive. And although we're like a non-profit organisation, it's not about that. It's about what's best for the person at the time.
and knowing who you are. Like, we're not a crisis service, so if you're coming to us with a mental health crisis, that's not our remit. But we'll signpost you to where that is. And I think it's having that clarity, and especially from an organisational point of view, you need that clarity too, because you need to be able to help the people you have. So you do.
So how many people are in the programme at any one time, or going through it at any one time?
So the way that we have structured it, right? So think of the 6-week programme as like an induction. So you do the 6-week programme, and then what happens is the majority of people stay with us. So we have now created a community, like a sober active community of people who have done the programme and now stay. So they just pay a membership like you would in the gym, and they get all the classes the same as anybody else. So we have about 50 active members now that have gone through the programme, that have stayed to train regularly with us. So we train during the week through Zoom. We have 4 sessions, a mindfulness session, we do yoga, we have group check-ins, so we have smart recovery sessions as well, accountability groups, so we have loads of stuff going on. But we only take, and I make a point of, any group that we run is always 6 people, because it's small. And the reason it's small is because it allows people to form those relationships better.
Yeah.
It's hard when there's 10 or 12 people, 20, but that's difficult. So you go into rehab and there's 14, 15 people. It's a lot of people. A
lot of places to hide as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So keep it small, 6 people, keep it nice and tight. They develop their relationship and they grow stronger, and then you feed them into the bigger community who have already got your values and your vision and fully understand the process, and then they support. So it becomes self-supporting, which is what we want, and that's where that whole peer stuff, people helping people, comes from.
Yeah.
Do you think that so like I said, we'd spoken to other people who've kind of went through the recovery process, and the process that they've described, a bit like yourself talking about the kind of big castle and stuff like that, that it's quite that's almost like it's quite an anachronistic approach, in that it's like, stick you guys away out, take them out of people out their environment, and then stick them in there, and everyone will be groovy. Whereas what seems to be more apparent now, after talking to yourself and the boys at Train Mind, Body and Soul and Thomas and stuff like that, is that doing something that is more inclusive, and there is it's not just, right, okay, you're an addict, we're going to just sit here and talk about how you used to like drugs. That doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? It really can't work. Do you know what I mean? So there's this whole new school of thought that's coming in. I think that's really interesting.
So we are, and I've always been highly community focused. So not only do we support the individuals, but we support their families too. But for example, before lockdown came around, our local Starbucks, massive Starbucks, one Monday every month, they give us the run of the whole back space. So as an organisation, banners and all, art, fitness, addiction recovery coaching, we were visible in the community. We then started running social events where we had speakers come in from local organisations that work with addiction, but then also people in recovery, in a coffee shop, and it was highly invitational, again, because it's in the community. And this year we're running the No Shame campaign this year, and the big part of that is the real focus on the stigma and the shame and the blame, all of that stuff that happens around addiction, because not only does it stop people seeking help, but it really impedes on families getting support. So we have gone, so this year we have done a massive amount of work. Like, we've put a load of video content and stuff out there now that's been really well received. One of our guys has done a walk of no shame, because we all know the walk of shame. So he called it the walk of no shame, and they did like 1 million steps in March. So they had to do 1 million steps every day. They were out stepping, but they were tagging us, and it was not just people in recovery, it was the community that was doing it. In May, I'm running 5 marathons in 5 days with a 22-pound vest, a weighted vest. And again, that's for awareness and fundraising for what we do. But it's right, and it's in town, it's in front of, it's everywhere. Yeah. And that's to allow us to change the conversation, because treatment is a very small chunk of this thing. Society needs to change how we look at this and how we talk about this, because it could be anybody, no matter what your profession is. And if we can just encourage people to get a little bit of help a little bit sooner, then maybe they don't have to go through all the crap that I had to go through before they got sorted.
Mm-hmm. 5 marathons in 5 days?
It was not one of my finest ideas, I'll be honest, right?
Did Eddie Izzard not do something that was kind of like that?
He did like 30, or did he do one a month? Like, but like, you know, Eddie, I think Eddie's got problems. Like, I do like him, but like, geez, anybody that does that, hey,
I know.
So 5 full marathons.
Five full marathons with it's a 22-pound vest, so it's 10 kg, so it's like a plate.
Aye.
Fully weighted vest, and I was raging. The training was going really well. I had a guy, he's a strength and conditioning coach, and he was doing my program, and it was going well. I had a 20-mile run on Saturday, felt a wee bit tender, ran today, hurt my knee. I was like, no. So I'm like putting it in all different kinds of directions. We like ice in the hairdryer and doing all these things, but by hook or by crook we'll do it. But what I've done is I've broken the marathons down into sections, so like 5k segments. And I'm opening it up to our community, so they can come and they can run a section, they can run 2, they can run 3, follow which, you know, so make it really visible. You're going
to end up like Forrest Gump. Have you seen that scene where everyone just starts following him down the road?
They'd be like, social distance, what? Like,
I'm just doing it just because I feel like it.
I'd be like, hey, I'm in front. I don't know what's happening back here. Right? It's not up to me.
That's amazing, but man.
So that's in the end of May. Do you know what? And it's one of those things. I find lockdown really difficult in the fact that my structure and routine went out the window, and anybody that you talk to in recovery, fundamental building block, structure and routine.
100%.
Out the window. So we started increasing the sessions that we did. So I stopped training. We were training people more, and then I just wasn't doing anything. My mental health was getting worse. I was feeling crap. You were starting to eat like literally TV-sized bars of chocolate twice a day. Even find myself hiding them about the house, which is like old behaviour. So like,
I know.
Like, there's a house full of people like, where's my chocolate? Like gone. Like, that's right. It's another thing. Where's my dairy milk? So I needed something. So the run was equally like for fundraising and awareness building, but it was also for my head, for a focus and a goal. And hey, I'll get it done. It will not be fun.
No.
Let's be fair.
No, you're not going to have a good time.
I'm not going to have a good
Just
time.
when you said that, I'm like, ooh.
Oh, no.
Gary boy, come on, take a taxi, mate.
There's people are like, Gary, like, just take the weight out of the vest. Like, nobody will know. I'm like, it's irrelevant.
This is the best bouncing up.
It's still 5 marathons in 5 days.
I know, yeah, still.
But do you know, and the thing about the whole physical activity thing for me, like I was never fit and I was never healthy, never trained. And so I got sober in the August and joined a running club in the September, and I hated it. I was 18 stone at the time. I was so unfit. My body had been through so much, and I puked after my first session, and I was like, never going back. That's a stupid thing. Who does that for fun? And then my friend took me back and says, right, back, it's Thursday night, let's go back again. And I just started being consistent and going. And that's when I started to love running. So running was the first love for me back then. And I was like the Forrest Gump of dairy back then. Like I was running maybe 2 times a day, like just running and like running all the crap out of me, running all those feelings and those emotions and all the crap that comes with it. But the running club was somewhere where people didn't drink because they were training. They chose to just not be drinkers. So it made it a lot more kind of easier for me to be in recovery or a non-drinker. So, and like my body was a mess when I did. Like I broke my back 2005, drunk behind the wheel of a car, big metal frame for months, and then I was put on tramadol, and you're like, what's this? Give me it all.
Opiates, man. Opiates, man.
You know. And then after that, I couldn't stop drinking. Then because I went back to work, I was drinking. I used to manage supermarkets. I was ridiculous. Like I was in there drinking half bottles of vodka, trying to waste time. I'm like, how can I help you today? And like I think back on the time of that life, like, and you know, I had so much pride and stuff that, like, God forbid anybody found out what I was doing. I knew I was in trouble, like, but I could never stop it. And then there was one time where things were really bad, and I always give up jobs before I get fired. It's very good that way. Like, you know, like to keep that clean slate. Do you know that?
Yeah, of course. No.
And things had broken down, and my relationship was under pressure, and my mental health was bad. And I drove to a beach, and like this is not like a trigger warning. Like the intention was drive to the beach, going to go for a walk into the river or the sea, and that was it. That was the decision. and I was sitting in the car. I had taken over the diazepam, and I had 2 bottles of wine in the car, and I was drinking a bottle of wine, and I got a knock on the window. And these 2 ladies were obviously going for a walk on the beach, but they told me that I had a flat tire. So that broke the chain of thought. So I either, in my stupor, failed to change the tire correctly, or whilst driving home, I drove into a wall, and then that was just another. Car was wrecked, lost bits of my finger and my thumb, broken. I just wrecked myself, like literally. So that's why I can't do 5 marathons in that hand, because I don't have 5 fingers. So, like my body was a mess. Years of addiction, years of those kind of traumatic injuries, and then I was arrested. And I like to tell this story like I was on a motorbike, but it was a moped. It's kind of like a motorbike, but not, right? And I was that drunk. I came to a T-junction, and I just forgot to put my feet down. And I just literally was like, do you ever see the Only Fools and Horses episode where Del Boy falls? I was just like that there. And I popped my shoulder out, and anyway, my body was broken. So the fact that I was even running marathons and stuff like that is just a testament to what you can do. You can come back from stuff, and this is the first time I'm being kind of lighthearted about this. And it's funny, they look back on the things that have happened, right? I think you need to be in a good place. Like, I'm in a good enough place that I've put a lot of that crap to bed. And I've dealt with it, and I've dealt with the shame, and I've dealt with the stuff that I've hurt people in the past and broken relationships, but I've done that work.
Mm-hmm.
But jeepers, how I look back at some of that stuff, and you're like, how are we having this conversation?
Yeah.
Why am I here chatting? And that's the reality for a lot of people. Some people just go through a serious amount of chaos. So we get people in the program with breaks and broken stuff and dodgy backs and twisted legs and missing parts. And
I just think a big part of recovery is you've got to forgive yourself. Stop punishing yourself. So actually, it's kind of a strange segue, but I myself had a bit of an issue. I wasn't quite like falling off mopeds like Del Boy, but
it was a motorbike.
But yeah, I had a bit of an issue, and it was just getting out of hand, and I just cut myself off of the world, moved back in with my mum, and just was like, I need to get myself away from the people I was hanging about with and all that sort of thing, and went through therapy and stuff like that. But to this day, I'm kind of cool with everything. I've kind of put all that stuff to bed. My subconscious hasn't let it go though. So Chris and I we did a very small podcast, just the two of us talking about dreams. So for the past 8 months or something, I am consistently murdered horrifically 5 times a week in my sleep. Like my dreams, what are they like, Chris?
Genuinely, if you were to make there are horror films that are just less horrific than Greg's dreams.
Like getting my teeth pulled out with pliers and fed to me. I also got the funniest one recently was I get chased by an angry mob of people and stamped and stabbed to death for not looking enough like Kevin Costner.
What you say, right? Kevin Costner is like, I mean, you want to look like that.
But the reason the reason we're raging is because I had managed to snag the role of a lifetime in Waterworld 2, and there was an outcry online. He doesn't look enough like Kevin Costner, and they were outside Warner Brothers studio.
You can just imagine Waterworld 2 with a Glaswegian accent.
It's fucking hell. The tide's coming a bit, innit? Aye, so but it's weird. You've got forgiving yourself is a huge issue because I don't know about you, but sometimes when you think back and you kind of go, oh Jesus Christ, I did that. Do you know what I mean? That's really difficult.
There's 2 things, right? So the first one, it's time, right? And you can't. Time is time. It takes time. But there's 2 things that we do, right? We reflect or we ruminate, right? And a guy told me, like, only cows ruminate. And basically that means regurgitating something up, chewing it and swallowing it again. It's the same thing. So if you reflect on something, you look back and you think, that was a really terrible thing. What was going on in my life? What was I doing? What was happening around that time? All right, I can see why that happened. It was shit, but I can't change it, so that's okay. Rumination is what you're talking about and sitting on it. if you sit in the negative feeling that brings, if you sit in the sadness or the anger's the worst. You sit in the, because you can be angry at lots of different things, but if you sit in that, it doesn't go anywhere and it's not helpful. And that's why, so when it comes to things like relapse, there are some programs out there that will be very hard on people that relapse. And the reality is, this is a learning thing. This is a cycle. It's not a straight line. There's ups and there's downs. People might do well for a while, then something will happen. So what we try to do is we get somebody, if they've relapsed, we get them straight back. It's like, well, what happened? What was going on back then? What can you reflect on? There's no point you sitting feeling really bad. We're not punishing you. Hey, it happens. Let's move forward. But if you can take the learning from that and move that on, then the chances of your relapse happening in the future is a lot smaller. And if that continues to go, then hey, you're 10 years
every time.
You're 10 years down the line. And that's the thing. And there's a difference between relapsing and choosing to go out and drink. They're very different things. Usually people who relapse they're so hard on themselves because they feel so disappointed, they feel so upset. And I just think you need to treat that compassionately because nobody chooses to be addicted to things, whether they're physically or psychologically. It's not like I didn't wake up and think what would be great crack this morning is if I had to go and crush some diazepam with a Lynx can in the bathroom and snort it just so I can get out of bed to function during the day. That wasn't a choice. But it was where I found myself. Mad.
So tell me about the pillars, because I was on their website and I was on a wee kind of look about, and I was really interested in the sort of pillars thing that you had there. So can you talk us through it?
So there's things in there like honesty, showing up, integrity, being non-judgmental, right? So fundamentally, how you should be with people. So what we're asking people is to come into an environment that we've created that's safe. And the way that we keep it safe is that we moderate everything that we do, because you're asking people to come in, to share their life, to share their vulnerabilities, and that takes courage. So being non-judgmental means that we allow people the space to change. It also means we don't give a crap about what happened in your past. Stuff happens. If I was to sit and say, oh, your man can't come in because this happened in the past, that's massively hypocritical. It's about taking people where they're at without judgment and seeing the person, not the problem. Turning up, consistency. Recovery is about consistency. You have to turn up. And even if you turn up and it's a rubbish station, or you turn up and you're feeling crap, you turned up and you're there. Yeah. And honesty, honesty is the fundamental building block in this thing. You can lie to yourself and you can lie to everybody else for as long as you need to, but you're never going to move forward. And that's that personal responsibility piece that we push on people, because, I can work with what people tell me. I can't work, I'm not a mind reader. So if I don't know what's going on in your life, how can we guide and support you? But if you're not honest with yourself, how are you supposed to make any changes? So that gives us a kind of a bedrock to kind of work on. I just think that we need to be able to treat people with addiction issues, substance misuse problems, whatever terminology you want to use, with the same respect as we would with somebody who goes into a GP practice with depression, low mood, flipping diabetes. Somebody has an issue. We just need to help them, And that was a big thing for me. So the stigma is a big thing. And that's why I've always tried to be transparent about what I do, because if I can demonstrate to the people out there that, people can change, and, I mightn't be the arsehole that I was 10 years ago. That's what we try to do. We have to have these conversations.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to have those conversations, because otherwise it gets swept under the carpet and nothing ever gets dealt with.
Never.
So tell me, I'm quite interested to know about your opinion on, given your experiences, your opinion on decriminalising drugs. Do you think that it's a good thing, a bad thing? Do you think that the way Portugal are doing things, do you think that's a good way of doing it? Or
if you look at what Portugal did in terms of decriminalisation, they massively reduced their heroin death rate by something like 95%. It was a mental amount. So there's arguments for and there's arguments against, right? If you go back, and if there's a guy called Johan Hari, I don't know if you've ever seen his videos on YouTube, so he talks about connection and disconnection, and about addiction being a connection issue. But he also went back and did a book about the war on drugs. And prohibition was something that happened. So when something like that is enforced, then you put a demand on something. And if you put a demand on something like that, then people are going to use it. Now, I am not stupid enough to think that you can, wipe out drugs or wipe out alcohol use. Not in our generation or many generations to come. So that's not a reality. So is there an option to decriminalise? I think there is. Do I agree with it? It's a challenging one, because if society still has all of those underlying problems, if you have social deprivation, if you have got mental health issues, if you have people that aren't resilient, and you have all of those things, then you do open up that can of worms. You do offer that. So you do. So it's a tough one. I don't know where I sit. Probably at the minute, if I'm honest, I would be on the fence. I do see the sides. I do see, both sides. But I think from a human level, I think we need to start dealing with ourselves. I think we need to do a bit more work on ourselves, because there's a lot of people out there, don't use drugs or so it's a really difficult one. It's the same as the minimum pricing thing comes in. There's a massive outcry about minimum pricing of alcohol, like they brought it into Scotland. That's a really, really good thing, because, it's a really good thing because it makes alcohol a little bit less accessible. But then on the other hand, you have people that are saying, like, we are working with the most vulnerable people with no money. These people are getting sick and unwell because they can't afford the alcohol that they're going to need. So, it's a really difficult thing.
So I think broad strokes like that, you're never ever going to hit all demographics. No. And you've got people who use alcohol and drugs for very different reasons, that come from very different backgrounds. I mean, some of the sort of most wild drug users I know are people who are functioning drug addicts. They've got very good jobs and stuff like that. And same alcohol, whether you make it like when they changed the old £3 3 litre of cider to a minimum price of £7, folk like that, it didn't matter to them. Do you know what I mean? So, I think you're definitely right. There are definitely arguments for and arguments against. The only thing I think about it is that the safety of the drugs. People are going to take drugs. We've been taking them since time began. People have been eating mushrooms and getting high for years. It's never going to change. So, by decriminalising it, you are taking it out of the underworld, and you're also going to make it safer for vulnerable people.
So what you're talking about, so what happens there is it becomes harm reduction. So what you're actually doing, so you're not removing a person's desire to go and abuse something, but what you're doing is you're reducing the risk on the person's health, on the health service, on the justice service. You're doing all that. So you're doing a massive piece of work on that. And if you took the money that you saved from all of that and put that into programs, life skill programs for people who have the issues that are underlying that'll drive them to abuse these substances, then you have a better chance of finding some kind of an equilibrium. You know what I mean? So you can, but definitely, like, how many people are buying drugs now they're getting delivered to their house from the internet? They have no clue what they're putting on their mouth. No clue. And like young people now at the minute are dying. They're going to central nervous system depression. They're stopping breathing and they're dying. 14 years old. And you're like it's such a massive, it's a monumental task. So it is. And look, I'm not a policy maker. For me, I'm heavily community focused. So if I can try and influence the upper echelons of government, I think for me, I am really focusing on, if people were okay with themselves, if people had the resilience, if people were all right just to be, like, I think, see the teenager that was at school, and this is me, I'm thinking about it, if it was okay just to not like what everybody else liked them, was comfortable with that, or was comfortable with me, then I don't think I'd have gone down half the routes that I chose in life. And I think we need to be in schools. And I think we need to be in schools, not hammering drug and alcohol education at people, but we need to now start hammering resilience, self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence. Because you've got kids now at primary school that are struggling because parents are maybe doing stuff at home. And like, where do they turn? So if you can give people the skills younger and also provide things for people to do. I was a teenager and had nothing to do, blue bags on a field, provide resources. Let people, like what they do in Iceland, let people have free sport, give them access to more stuff. Then maybe we'll not have so much of an issue.
Yeah, I think boredom is definitely a big thing.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a massive cultural change into how we view, like you say, like alcohol was just culturally being something that we do, that it was almost expected. Seeing it on a Friday night, what do you mean you're not coming out with a bottle of fucking
Bottle of Eldorado.
bottle of woodpecker and fucking let's go out and drink this and kick over some bins and be hard as fuck? Why we not doing? What do you mean you're not doing that?
That's right.
Like,
Because they were your social milestones.
Yeah.
That's how important. Firstly, were you old enough to get into the off license? Then were you able enough to get into the bar? And then there was always a nightclub. And then you'd made it. It was the mecca.
Yeah.
I'm here. What happens next? All right.
There was always that nightclub, or the nightclub. It was like a room above a bar that you could get in with your bank card. And you're like, I've not got an ID, but I've got this.
The debit card.
I've got a debit card. The guy. Just some doorman who doesn't give a fuck. Then you go, I don't care. Yeah. Then you get. I've asked you the question. I've done my bit.
You've showed me a card.
That's it. Then you get. Yeah, well done.
So Gary, tell me, before we finish up for the evening,
yes.
what do you see the future being like for Arc Fitness and yourself?
I romanticize about this so much. I found myself going on the rabbit hole today. I had an idea, and then the idea led on to ideas, and then it was half an hour later, and the dog had peed in the corner. It was okay. So, at the minute, right, we are based in Derry. We have a studio gym. We have a community of people. We've got a massive following. But I want what we do accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So I want to see us going to other places regionally. Can we go regionally? Can we have GP referrals? Can we get the ethos and the values of what we're trying to instill in people out there? And we were lucky enough to have been supported. There's a local business in town. It's an e-learning company called Learning Pool, and they came on board 3-year corporate sponsorship and built our Arc Academy, which is an online learning platform. Wow. So we're now redeveloping that. They allow people to access what we do from wherever, whether you're in Scotland, it's irrelevant. You can access the program, you can access the learning, you can access the classes, and just start reaching out a lot more. We're now doing workshops now. We're potentially going into schools in the area to do that drug and alcohol education, mental health awareness. And do you know what? We just want to see the community grow. We want to see people being confident enough to be sober and, it being okay. Families brought back together. There's loads of stuff we want to do. But we always want to make sure what we're doing now is right.
Yeah.
Because it's, we have to look forward because we have a 2-year funding stream from the lottery. What happens then? I gave up my job just over a month ago as a nurse. So we need to find ways to remain sustainable. People forget that you're not for profit. People forget when you're a community-based organisation that there's not a wild lot of money.
No.
There's still a gym to be paid for and equipped. There's salaries. There's stuff that happens. So we need to start thinking, what can we be doing to develop the services that we have, reach more families, reach more communities and more countries. We have followers, we have a lot of followers, and we have people from Canada, we have a reach, but we would like to be able to provide more. So that's what we would like. I believe in what we do, and I don't believe that because you come in and train for 2 nights a week in a gym that it's going to solve all your problems. I mean, there's no shortages of gyms, but I do think of what we've created and the fact that we really push the community approach and the connection, that I just think it works, and it's shown it does work. We had a piece of research published there. We worked with Queen's University in Belfast, and we kind of researched what we did because it was important. It was important for this not to just be my opinion, because we all, what they say, opinions are like air souls. Everybody has one. And it's true. And so for me, it was about how can I show people that it actually does work, and it's not just me saying it does. So we've worked really hard to build the credibility behind what we do, and just keep everything safe. If we can do that, we're doing well.
Well, I think that's pretty inspiring, Gary.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, I'm going to finish up for this evening. Gary, thanks very much for coming on and talking to us. Really appreciate it, mate.
Thank you very much, guys. A pleasure.
I'll sign off just now. Thanks very much for listening, folks. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons.